And in the time that it took for us to take care of the headlines and the traffic reports and all of the mentions from the advertisers, managed to scare up a couple of in-studio guests. Actually, 1, 2, 3, scare them up. Waking up early. Well, you guys are waking up early anyway because you got a brand new hospital run. Francis Santos from Guam Regional Medical City. Good morning.
Half a day, Ramon. Half a day, Guam.
Pleasure to have you here. You might have heard this voice on the radio yesterday, Dr. Felix Cabrera from GRMC as well. Good morning.
Buenos and half a day, Ray.
Did you hear that? Can you hear the Saipan in there? It's there. Kevin Kerrigan's also taking pictures and hanging out. How you doing?
Good.
That's always nice seeing you.
You too?
Yes, not too far away from some old hunting stomping grounds around here.
We want to thank you too for the great job you did at our grand opening last week.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that was too much fun.
Yeah.
We got to do it again without the break at the end of it because I wanted to spend more time with Dr. Cabrera and learn a little bit more about him, what he's going to be doing over at the hospital. You know, working alongside Dr. Mike and some of the things that are going to be coming. But let's start with something that has been a little bit overshadowed by some of the other headlines that we've had recently, and that is somebody that ran into some medical issues, drove up to the emergency room over at GMH, and in this case, the facility wasn't able to handle him.
Yeah, sure. Well, the patient showed up at GRMC.
I'm sorry,
yeah.
GRMC.
Yeah,
you sent him to GMH.
Yeah. So the patient, we've had a few incidences where a patient shows up at GRMC, and what they were seeking for was emergency care. And so basically right now we don't have full capabilities of offering emergency services, but nonetheless, as they showed up, we did everything we could for the patient. We had a physician do a medical screening exam, initiate preliminary treatments and ensure stabilization of the patient, and then had a proper disposition plan, which was in that case determined that the patient needed full emergency care. So then transferred the patient to Guam Memorial Hospital after discussing with the physician on call at GMH, and they accepted the patient.
Now, I don't know what he came in reporting and what all of the circumstances were, but obviously you weren't in a position to be able to avail emergency services to him. If he had come in with something maybe less urgent, less life-threatening, is there the possibility that you would have said, you know what, we could process you in?
Absolutely. So right now at GRMC we are capable of admitting patients into the inpatient services, but mostly on a elective basis.
Sure. And
so if the case was that it was something that made sense and that we felt that was best for the patient, then we would have done that.
Gone ahead and admitted him. But in
absolutely.
that case, his whatever the malady was, it was sufficiently greater than you were able to provide at the emergency room.
And at that point in time, GRMC was not what was best for the patient, so we obliged and make sure that he got what was best for him. So
called 911. They come over with an ambulance and transported him to Guam Memorial Hospital. The follow-up on the story, and we express our condolences to the family. Apparently that patient had passed away as a result of whatever the illness was that he or she was reporting at the time. It brings up the question, though. Hospital's been open for a couple of Mondays, third week of full-blown operations. You've already had a surgery, and so is there a target date for lighting the fires underneath the emergency room? Sure, and the one main part that we want to really express to the community of Guam and the whole region is that opening a hospital is not a single event, it's a process. And we hope that to make it clear to the community that as a process we have multiple services that will be rolling out, and one of them is our emergency services, and that's a process in itself, and it will take time. We are looking to open up our emergency room services in the next 1 to 2 weeks. Okay, and it's just a question of personnel, materials that need to be put in place, as well as procedures. I mean, I'm sure there's not a book on here's how you open an emergency room, but we've got a pretty good idea of what's going to happen. Yeah. So what we do have a pretty good idea what's going to happen, and what we are looking for in our emergency room services is proper. Well, we have our equipment. Equipment's in place. Everything's fine there. We're still working on our supplies, and then as well as we're working on our staff.
just like Guam Memorial Hospital, we're having our own struggles in ensuring adequate staff.
We all need nurses. The other question I've got, and I don't know whether there is some kind of protocol or an MOU that somebody has to write. If there is an accident on Route 16 or Route 8 and ambulances are dispatched to the scene of that accident, who makes the decision on where the patient may go to? Is that have you guys already worked it out with Chief Joe?
I'm going to defer to the clinical side because obviously we have our other side of the equation. But go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, no. So what we've been doing is we've been having very open dialogue with especially Guam Fire Department and ensuring that we have these protocols exactly in place and that they understand what our facility is capable of doing and what GMH is capable of doing. And then again, it always boils down to what's best for the patient.
But who's going to make that decision? I mean, the ambulance driver?
Well, they have their
next conscious adult near the patient?
For the absolute critical patients, they have their line of delineation in terms of which facility is closer. So in the absolute critical situations, it's whoever's closest.
Gotcha.
And then from there, it's based on I think the main separation is whether or not they're a Naval Hospital beneficiary and can go to Naval Hospital. Otherwise, it's whoever's closest.
Okay, and so it'll come down to geography and the fastest road mile to get to.
Absolutely.
There's one other thing before we get into some of the relief efforts. I know you and the other sons of Saipan are working on here. Is what about urgent care? I mean, there's forever and a day it was if you are sick, if you're really sick, go to the hospital. But if you can wait, then go to the clinic tomorrow morning. And now there is another part of the spectrum of care, and that is urgent care. And they stood up at GMH an urgent care facility. Will there be something along those lines at
Absolutely.
GRMC?
So what we done was we went a step ahead, and what we did was we designed not an urgent care but an emergency room fast track. And so what this does is that as you present to the emergency room, you will be met by a triage nurse, and he or she will determine is this at least initially, is this a full emergency department patient, or is this something that can qualify for fast track? And for fast track, we have several goals. One is absolute quality and safe care, but another one is fast care and make sure that the patient that doesn't have to wait around for 1 to 2 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, and if they come in with a cut or a cough, that they be seen quickly and have a quick turnaround time.
Okay, because there is that. I've checked myself into the emergency room because I had strep throat. Am I going to die tonight? No, I'm not. But I want you to give me something to make the pain go away.
And we will do that, and we will do that quickly for you.
That's an expensive doctor visit, Ramon.
That's what the lady, I'm trying to remember the name of, who was I insured with at the time, and they just kind of laughed at me.
I would have denied the bill.
They did. They did. I had to pay the whole thing myself. And I thought, well, wait a second. But it's rheumatic, right? So if I left this untreated, it might down the road cause me some years.
You sound like a Duenas guy. Why did you decide at 10 o'clock in the evening, my throat is hurting?
Because the Johnny Walker didn't help.
Well,
that's why.
I get it. But still, going back, just to segue into the EMS stuff, interestingly enough, we got a email yesterday from Marlene Carbolito, who's the head of the EMS office.
Yeah.
And she's, laid out the agenda for this meeting. So I believe it's sometime next week that the 3 hospitals are going to meet and start talking about the real, let's get really down. I mean, we've had already a discussion between the 3 hospitals. We had a meeting.
Yeah, we had a meeting
a month ago that they came to the hospital between Navy Hospital and of course GMH and ourselves, and the administrators were all there. We all sat down and said, okay, let's start.
Something bad down on this side of Adelup. This is where you go.
Pretty much have divvied up the island, right? So we're north. GMH should be central, and of course south is Navy Hospital. So I think at least geographically we've segmented the island. Now the issue is the knock on wood, hopefully it's not a huge thing where we're all scrambling and saying we've maxed out here, you got to start. And I learned a new word from the docs again. It's diverting. Yeah. Because at some point you're done. I mean, that's all you can take. And you
are a population center.
Agreed. And then that's why I think Dr. Felix said it pointedly, that the challenges we have is adequately staffing the ER room. And I'm learning all this stuff. I'm saying it's doctors and then the nurses, and then, you know, your staff. So, I mean, he said, just imagine a trauma incident where, you know, if you have 3 on staff and 2 go in, at least 1 to handle the rest. And I said, I got it.
Yep.
I get it. You know, I mean, I see what you're talking about. So, and again, so, I mean, yes, we know we're in the populated area, and if there is an accident, again, you know, our team, I know they're ready, and the question is, how many at one time are coming in? I mean, it's the stuff we watch on TV, right? And now, you know, Felix obviously has seen it. I'm going to see this. I guess I'm going to see it live. And just sit there and go, wow.
You're kidding. We're going to do this.
Yeah.
Well, it's done. So a couple of weeks from now, we'll watch as this unfolds, and then, you know, what level of preparation. You know, what are the lessons that we're going to learn up in Saipan? We've learned some lessons about the delicate nature of the infrastructure and how things can happen rapidly with the change in the weather. The good news is that the hospital is functioning. They've got people that are going in there. They've got water. They've got power. They've got all of those kinds of things. Now, I'm going through the mental checklist for me. What would happen if I lost virtually all of my 21st century infrastructure? I'm sure that you guys have done the same thing over at GRMC. Double check the generator, double check our water supply, all of that to make sure that you can continue to function as a hospital in the event of some kind of major calamity.
Yes, and Ray, you know what's important to recognize is that yes, the hospitals in Saipan, CHC is open and it is running, but the people themselves, the staff themselves, have suffered themselves, and many of them have had destruction to their homes, and a few of them are homeless themselves. And in terms of their struggle, it's extremely personal in terms of what they're trying to do to continue to help those on the island. So we've been doing our part here on Guam. Me personally, I've been added at 2 fronts, and the first front is with GRMC, and what we've been doing to communicate directly to CHC. I've been in very frequent communication with Estemuña, their CEO, as well as John Tadella, their chief of staff, and really trying to identify what their exact needs are. And at around 12:30 last night, I was even emailing directly with Estemuña about, and she has responded with a list of needs as well, a more recent list of needs, and based on that, we're going to respond. So at GRMC,
if I would understand any of them, what are some of the things that they need at CHC?
Sure. So
CHC,
you know, to be perfectly honest, it starts with some very basic items: linen, blankets, pillows, patient gowns. Those are the things that they can't easily turn around and make available to their own patients.
There's no water for washing.
Exactly. So that was one of the things that they said was very simple, very humble request, right? So we will oblige, and we will do what we can to support them with that. The second thing they requested was, of course, manpower. Of course, that's a little bit more difficult.
Tricky down here.
It's tricky because of you know, travel. Where we're going to put them up. You know, the hotels are on skeleton staff, and so that's very limited. And residents are actually trying to seek refuge in the hotels themselves. So that's a little bit difficult. One of the other things they identified their immediate needs and then also their long-term needs. And so right away we're trying to look at, okay, I think we're more inclined to give them their long-term needs. So what do we need? So they're afraid about what they may fall short on their supplies and their based on whether or not their vendors can even deliver to the island. So that's the venue that we've identified as where we can be helpful. So
that's turning into a somewhat of a problem for a number of people that would like to assist. We've got people up in the west coast of the United States, the sons and daughters of Guam, and they're saying, okay, we can amass a whole bunch of stuff that we can send over to you, but getting it from there to Saipan is tricky. Getting it from there to Guam, not so bad, not so tough. But we've got, you know, it funnels down, the freight funnels down rapidly, and funnels down almost, unfortunately, a trickle between here and Saipan. So I think that's among the bigger issues that you're going to have to get through.
Yes, and not only that, the other part of that is the second half of that. And so there's a tremendous amount of effort and manpower that's associated with getting the aid that's needed. But one thing that's not very well recognized, and there's a phenomenon called the disaster after the disaster, and that's where a flood of aid comes in and finds its way to the area of need, which is in this case Saipan, and then there's no mechanism of actually distributing that aid. And so all of a sudden it's a burden, major burden on the recipient in terms of how to disperse this. And it takes sometimes not as much but even more effort in how we're going to get this out. And a lot of times that can lead to bad press for the recipient, and that's not fair. And so we have to be very responsible in how we're going to do that and make sure that we do what we can to fundraise and do what we can to get the aid, but then also how to distribute it.
Have you solved that problem?
We are working. Yeah, absolutely.
What kind of solution have you come up with? Because they're talking about sending a container up there, and thank God Carlotta might be there to open the door and start handing the things out, but otherwise it will come down to somebody who will have to figure out how to fairly and evenly distribute, as you said, as much of that aid as possible.
Yeah, with the GRMC to CHC front, that's pretty simple. I mean, it's hospital to hospital basically. But the other group that I'm involved with, the grassroots efforts that we have, we have named ourselves Sons of Saipan, because we're a bunch of old, born and raised on Saipan, and we went off to college and got our education.
670 and the 671.
Yes, exactly.
You can find them on Facebook. There's a Facebook page, and it's already well populated. There's a lot of likes. You can find the like and the link on my page.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. And so it's a page that we created, and we have a link to our GoFundMe page where you can make monetary donations.
Oh, there you go.
Yes, and so we've been very humbled by the response that we've had. I think I just checked about a few hours ago, and we have like over about $1,800 already donated through that GoFundMe page. And so, but from that grassroots efforts, what we're bringing to Saipan is that we've been organizing. Basically, and we kept that concept in mind about how it's going to take a lot of effort to collect this, but how do we ensure the proper distribution? So what we're doing is we're taking these monies and we're making them into care packages. Okay. There's about 1,000 homeless people right now in Saipan.
Right.
As a result of
there's some in the shelters, some staying with family and friends. Yeah.
So there's about 600 that are in shelters and about 400 that are in families. And these are the people that we want to target, and then also those that are actually not even identified.
We're just about out of time. You got a hospital to go and run. Francie's got some meetings that he has got to go to, and Kevin's going to write some press releases. I want to say thanks very much for coming in this morning, clearing the air on the emergency room issue. We'll see you there in a couple of weeks, and I will on my page make sure the link is there.
Fundraiser tomorrow night at from 6 to 8 to 10 p.m. at Pica's Cafe.
I know the spot.
Yes,
I know the spot. All right, I'll get the listeners' details on that. Doc, thanks very much for coming in. Francie and Kev, thanks for being a part of the program as well.